Hi, my name is Keith Brooks, and welcome back to Reader Beware. On today's episode, I'm going to be reviewing the piece of shit called The Werewolf of Fever Swamp, issue number 14, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf? Reader Beware, you're in for a scare. Cue the theme music. Alright, cool. The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. Where the fuck do I begin? It had been so long since I read a Goosebump book that I forgot what kind of torture it was like. This has never happened to me. Close things have happened. But I imagine if someone was putting a nail into the hole of my cock, this is what it would feel like. This book is horrible. And it's made even more horrible by the fact I'm reading H.P. Lovecraft at home. And so to take that, which is this eloquent description of horror and madness and the depths of humanity, and this is like, Big Wolf, scare bad, no! So it starts off with this kid named Grady, who's 12 years old. Big surprise. Grady is, I haven't even fucking said where we are. We're in the middle of a con. We're in the middle of a convention right now, doing this in front of a live crowd. I probably should have mentioned that. Will you pan around so they can see there's people here? It's going to be creepy because the first... And then give some love to the other side too.
Full 360. Production value, guys.
About 360.
Yeah, there we go. Point is, the book fucking sucks. No. So we're at Cosmoseum Con in Atlanta, Georgia, a convention about cosplaying and sucking each other's dicks because that's all we've been talking about. A lot of the charities and stuff like that, a lot of it goes to Make-A-Wish Foundation, right? Okay, so the book starts, 12-year-old Grady's family just moved to Florida from Vermont, maybe? I don't know where the fuck they came from. It doesn't matter. It's not an integral part of the story. Nothing is an integral part of this fucking stupid-ass story. This story has as much action as my bed recently, which is sad. They move down to Florida. Grady's... You hear that wolf howl? Oh, that's perfect timing. They moved down to the swamp, and Grady has a sister named Emily. His dad is studying the swamp deer that they got from Argentina and brought to Florida because that's the closest fucking thing to Argentina, I guess, in the States, because fuck Goosebumps and science and logic. So they've captured these 6 innocent deer that have done nothing wrong to no living creature, and they're making them live in the swamp, but not really, because they're all tied up behind them like some weird fucking Santa Claus cosplay. They move into the house, they don't know anything about their surroundings, so they start walking through the swamp that's out in the backyard, right? But the very first night that they're going through the swamp, they get lost, and they stumble upon this hermit who lives in the middle of the swamp, and he sees them outside of his shack, and he just starts screaming gobbledygook at him, like, Goosebumps, right? And they freak the fuck out, and they start running away. And then they trip, and then they're even more lost, and it takes them, like, hours to get out of the swamp because they're children and shouldn't have been left alone in the first place because they're fucking stupid. I don't think all kids are stupid, just it doesn't matter. So they get out of the swamp, and they run into this kid that lives in the neighborhood named Will. They describe Will as being large, confusingly large, which I guess is just a euphemism for fat, because they've never met a fat kid from where they're from, and as a fat kid, I'm offended by that. We exist everywhere, every continent. We're more populated than mosquitoes. Find out that the name of the swamp is Fever Swamp, but nobody knows why it's called Fever Swamp, and it's really actually never addressed the entire book again. They just mentioned that nobody knows. There's a hermit that lives there. Everybody knows that. They don't call the cops. They should. What the fuck happens next? I'm so worried that I'm going to miss one of the important details of this mockery of literature. Then Emily and Grady are sitting at home when all of a sudden, then they go to walk outside to go look back out at the swamp. I think Will's going to come over, and this dog just jumps on Grady and starts licking his face. And it's a super friendly dog, and it's my favorite character in the entire book because he has depth. He's the only one. They decided to name the dog Wolf because that's creative, and perfect timing on that one. That was good. They named the dog Wolf. They start hanging out with Wolf a lot. I'm trying to remember what happened. I had to hate read through this thing because I didn't want to read through it. So it's like when you're hate fucking something and you're just doing it harder and it means nothing to you on an emotional level. One morning wakes up and there's a rabbit dead in their yard, and everybody's like, well, I guess Wolf did it. That old pesky guy. But then the next night, Wolf starts barking, and they hear howling outside, and Wolf is trying to get the fuck out of the house. And everybody's like acting like that's not a dog thing to do. Like they're surprised that the new dog they got from outside is being rambunctious. And the dad's like, well, I guess we have to put him down because he shed on the carpet. And I'm like, whoa, calm down, that's too harsh, Dad. Some Irish girl named Cassie O'Rourke, who's 11, and she's a redheaded girl that eats Lucky Charms or some shit, starts telling everybody how there's a werewolf in the woods, and some guy, Mr. Edwin or something like that from down the street, he's missing. Wonder what happened to Mr. Edwin. Nothing really scary's happened in the book at all. They met a hermit guy that lives alone that probably was just working on his novel, and he screamed some stuff. But then they're talking about the werewolf and wandering through the swamp, and Wolf is with them, and all of a sudden they see something moving in the bush, and Wolf starts to growl. And they're like, oh fuck, shit's about to go down. And then they see that it's the homeless man, the hermit guy, right? And he's got blood all over his shirt. And Cassie, the Irish girl that's in it for 2 seconds, is like, oh, begorra, it must be the werewolf, it must be. He hears them and comes out of the forest with blood all over him, and he's like, I am the werewolf, I am the werewolf, and he starts chasing them. And Will, the fat kid, now becomes much more majestic and stronger than everybody else and outruns everyone. And the Irish girl disappears into some alcohol. I don't know. The hermit chases down Grady. Grady falls, and he's like, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. And the hermit's like, I'm not really a werewolf, kid. What's your ass? And then leaves. And Grady's like, oh, I must have misunderstood him. And then Grady gets bit by a snake for no fucking reason. We're never gonna talk about that again. It just happens, and then he hobbles home, and we never mention it again, right? The next morning, there was some noise that night, and the next morning they wake up, and one of Santa Claus's deer that's being tied up back is dead. Grady's the one that sees it, and the dad's like, well, I'm gonna have to shoot Wolf in the head. This just became an old Yeller story. And he goes to get Wolf, and then Grady's like, no, Wolf, run away, run away! And the dad's like, well, you're a fucking shitty son. Those deer are my job. Fuck you. That night, Grady hears howling, and he knows that Wolf is trying to track down this dog, so he goes out into the woods, and he finds Wolf. And he's like, Wolf, why are you out here by yourself? Is the hermit anywhere near you? And all of a sudden he gets tackled by a werewolf, a real werewolf. There is a werewolf. And you know who it is? The fat kid from earlier. He's the werewolf. So it's a 12-year-old boy being attacked by a 12-year-old werewolf, and then fucking Wolf, the dog, tackles him, and then there's a huge struggle, and then Grady goes home. No, Grady wakes up and he's at home and he's all bruised and bandaged and he's cleared up, and they're like, the hermit found you and he saved you. And then Grady's like, it was Will, he was the werewolf. And the dad's like, I'm gonna go look at Will's house and talk to his parents about this before I shoot your dog in the fucking face. And then he goes to talk to the parents, and he comes back immediately. He's like, there was no one there. No one's ever lived there. The house was boarded up years ago. Will was a werewolf. And Grady's like, but I'm cool with it. I haven't seen Will in a long time. Thank God it's the full moon. He's changed my life forever. And you realize that now Grady's a werewolf. If I had to rate this book, the way I rate the book is telling you what I would do to the book with my penis. Because again, I'm lonely. So I would take this Goosebumps book and I would just I'd do that one time. Because it doesn't read like a horror story, and I kind of like the fact that nothing really happens in it. That it is a smaller sort of piece, but it's just, it's a bore and a chore to get through, and it's all the things that are bad about Goosebumps represented in one book. Thank you for watching this episode of Reader Beware. Next time, tune in for Trevor, who will give you some more scares, also timed and with sound effects that were inappropriate. Cool? Awesome. Great.